Never fails to.
Good morning, folks. Thanks for coming in. If you can type in, just let me know who you are. Say good morning to me. Good morning to you. Good morning. How are you, Helen? Great to see you. Good morning, Robert. I had a message from a member yesterday, 2 days ago, saying that him and his son were in the back garden practicing with balls and smashed a neighbour's window. Good morning, folks. Just type me a message. Let me know who you are if you're checking in. We've got our first resident nerd in today, Helen Sykes. Good morning to you all. Good morning, Dom. I want to answer your question today about the strike. Okay, it's just turned 2 minutes past. We'll give it a couple more minutes just to make sure everyone's online. If you're watching at home and you don't know how to work the comments section, what you've got to do is you've got to sign in to create a YouTube account on YouTube. And if you just give them your email address and create a password, that will then give you whatever it is online, then you can just type in on the YouTube. You can join the live chat. So what you do is you type in, create an account, you create it instantly, you create your own email address, you put in, you then create a password, you put that in. It will then allow you to come into the live chat in the comments section on the side here and join in. It's really helpful for me because obviously you can give me your questions live then. So if you want to do that now, I'll give you a couple more minutes just to get yourself ready. It's 3 minutes past by my watch and we'll start at 5 past. Good morning, Mel. Okay, 1 more minute and then we'll get cracking. Alrighty, almost there. Another glorious day, empty golf course, empty club. It's so strange not having you all here. Really weird, quite eerie. Good. Alrighty, so let's get started then. Today is another technical session, and we're working very much on real detail, real data. Now, I've got plenty of notes today, so you'll forgive me if I don't make eye contact with you all the time. I'm looking down at my my notes here. So what we're going to talk about today will not necessarily make you a better golfer. It's just something which will interest many of you. Don't get too bogged down in the science, trying to think it's going to make your game a lot better. This is just something interesting for us to discuss, interesting for us to know. You'll also hear me talk a little bit about the chronology of how we learn as coaches and how TrackMan has developed our knowledge along the way and changed the dialogue that we have with you, and certainly changed the way we teach and what we talk about. There are certain things which we've said in the past which are completely untrue, but it got the message across. So sometimes we've got to sort of help you become better golfers by using phrases and terms which aren't technically accurate or scientifically correct, but it gets the message across. All right, so I've hit a few shots this morning, and what I've done, I've found one shot which I really want to dive into today, because it illustrates everything I want to talk about today and some of the sort of counterintuitive elements to ball flight and ball strike. All right. So, and I put everything here in quite a strict sequence, and I'll explain why that sequence is as it is very shortly. So it's an early one of my swings, 101 miles an hour. I should be swinging 7 miles an hour faster than that anyway. But my ball speed is very high relative to that club head speed. So I'm quite happy with that. And a ball speed of that high from that club head speed tells me the strike was quite centered. Anything off the heel toe, high or low, remember what I talk about oblique being weak? That's why we lose all that distance. So on that strike there, slow club head speed for me, but a good ball speed relative to that. A short carry, but I'd be quite happy with it. It's centre fairway. Height a little bit on the high side, 111 foot. I'm trying to get it to about 100 foot, but I don't mind a bit extra height. It doesn't really bother me that much. Total distance 274. I'll be quite happy with that as a total distance every time. Now, here's where we start getting into the important stuff for today's topic. Attack angle. If there's no minus there, it infers it's a plus. Yeah. So if it's a plus 4.5, my club head was ascending by 4.5 degrees as it hit the ball. Good morning, Simon. So the club head is ascending as it strikes the ball. And that's a really key point there. You may remember last week when we were in here, I talked about McIlroy being at 5 degrees of the plus attack angle there. I'm only half a degree away from the world's best. I'm probably 30 yards behind him. But at least I attacked the ball from the correct angle. Now, it's really key this, because when I first started using TrackMan and I was typing in the numbers online of what the world's best players do, it really occurred to me that you as golfers, me as a golfer, we can do certain elements of the swing and aim to have certain elements of the swing which match the world's best players to 0.1 of a degree. If McIlroy swings at around about 5 degrees on his attack angle, I'm at 4.5. I'm only half a degree away from how he's swinging the club into the ball on the ascent angle. So it must be good. So after I've done my attack angle here, I then have my face angle. And this is really interesting. I'm going to focus heavily on this point today. My face angle was 1.9 degrees open. And I'm going to do some really nerdy, geeky stuff today. So if you're a nerd and a geek and a scientist or an engineer or a mathematician, you're going to get right into this today. It's going to be fascinating for you. My club path was 4.7 degrees from the inside. Remember, I talked last time heavily about how we attack the ball from the inside. We don't come across the ball. Let's demonstrate that again for us. For those of you who may not have been with us last Saturday. My club path angle into that ball there was 4.7 degrees. That would be 0 degrees, which is impossible. That's a minus, and a plus is from here. 4.7 degrees of inside smack. Face on, 4.5 degrees of upside smack. So I'm ascending by 4.5 degrees as I hit that ball in the air, which is absolutely critical for the driver. So, club path at 4.7, launch direction 2.2 degrees right of target, launch angle, so it left the face at 14.9 degrees on the trajectory of that, spin rate, every ball ever struck has backspin, and that spin rate there was 2640, which is a little on the high side for me. This number here, spin axis, totally relates to path here, and it's a minus, and I want a minus on the spin axis of the ball. I'll explain that very shortly. Now, I bent that ball in the air 18 foot and 1 inch. It was an 18-foot draw. The low point of my swing, and again, this is a question Simon Dixon asked me in the week, it should be before the ball. Remember when I was talking last week, I was talking about the low point being after the ball with the irons, with the driver at 6 inches before the ball. A little heavy that for me, but I'll take it. Alrighty, so spin axis here, minus 7.3. For years, I have used the phrase draw spin or hook spin because it's what the best coaches in the world used to talk about. But what we know now, and how we've changed our dialogue, is that every ball ever struck has backspin. So with the driver here, as I hit the ball, it doesn't fly off the face, it rolls up the face, and that creates backspin. So how can the ball have hook spin? Just get the light out here, right? How can the ball have hook spin or side spin? It simply can't. Because if a ball's got backspin on it, it can't also have side spin. It can't spin 2 different ways. And so for years, when we said, you put hook spin on it or you put slide spin on it, we were using a phrase which is absolutely incorrect. There's a lot of fluidity in how we talk as golf professionals and how we talk about the game. And there's some negotiables and there's some absolutes in the game. But on this topic here, when I said slice spin or hook spin on the ball, it is wrong because we have backspin on the ball only. Now, the spin axis, remember I showed you here of the golf ball, is minus 7.3 here. What that tells us is that whilst that ball is spinning backwards, it has a spin axis of minus 7.3 degrees this way. So a ball which flies perfectly straight will have that as a spin axis. A ball which has draw spin on will have 7.3 degrees of spin axis this way. So it's still spinning backwards, but its axis is not horizontal. It's 7.3 degrees left of target, which is how we play a draw spin. See, I just used the word there. I'm saying we shouldn't use. It's how the ball draws left of target, because the axis of the ball is spinning the ball backwards, but on an axis which swings over to the left. When we slice the ball to the right, the axis is that way, and the ball is still spinning backwards, but its axis is that way, and that's what looks like. What's what creates the curve on the ball flight. So it's so easy to get trapped into using incorrect phrases. Now, if I said to you hook spin or slice spin, you would know exactly what I mean. Now, Mickey Mouse isn't a real mouse, doesn't look anything like a real mouse, but we know for intensive purposes that Mickey Mouse is our mouse. Same in golf sometimes. We use phrases and terminology which is strictly incorrect, but it gets the point across. And the game's complicated enough, right? So how did I have a ball spinning backwards, but on an axis of 7.3 left, when my face angle was so open? You would think if the club face is open, the ball would never ever be able to go to the left of target. And that's where the path that I hit into the ball has such a massive impact. If I make contact with the ball from an inside path, you can see that's how I create that axis on the ball strike. From here, that ball has an axis here. Now, because I hit from the inside with an open face, 1.9 degree open face, I hit from the inside, the ball starts right to target. But its axis on which it's flying is that. So it goes out, and then it comes back this way. So I'm going to play a fascinating video now. So here he is. I'll play it a couple of times.
It never fails to. I always notice whenever you're going to hit a draw, you always
drop the foot.
No, I'll drop the foot, but then also open the face just a tiny bit.
You got to start right.
It's like 1 degree to the right every time, and then same with a fade. You go opposite.
Slightly close, start left.
It's unbelievable how you do that every time. You don't even really seem to think about it much. You just kind of do it. It never fails to. I always notice whenever you're going to hit a draw, you always
drop the foot.
No, I'll drop the foot, but then also open the face just a tiny bit.
You got to start right.
It's like 1 degree to the right every time, and then same with a fade. You go opposite.
Slightly close, start left.
It's unbelievable how you do that every time. You don't even really seem to think about it much. You just kind of do it. It never fails to. I always notice whenever you're going to hit a draw, you always
drop the foot.
No, I'll drop the foot, but then also open the face just a tiny bit.
You got to start right.
I mean, that's amazing. You think years and years and years, we've all bought books on the game, we've studied everything about the game, we have, studied so many videos which have been garbage in many ways. But that's one of the world's best players just casually mentioning that he opens the face more to create a draw spin. And for years, we've closed the face, or I've tried to close the face of members when they address the ball to try and get the ball to spin or curve on its axis rather further to the left. Now, it's really confusing that. So he's opening the face. Now, why is that? It's better to display this with an iron, actually. If I strike a golf ball and I want to hit it from the inside, the strike needs to be from the inside. So I'm going to strike this part of the ball here, and that creates that banking axis. So that's why he opens the face. Because as he opens the face, it means the strike is more on this side of the ball. Now, he's only opening it by 1 or 2 degrees at the very, very most. But that opening of the face means he hits the ball at this quarter here, not the back of it. So it hits it more from the inside. Golf ball's here, as it opens the face, it means it hits more from the inside on the strike of the ball. So as the face is open, it's the inside path which creates the axis of the ball spinning to the left. It isn't so much the club face, what we would have naturally have thought of trying to close a club face over. When we close a club face, as he says, we hit a different part of the ball, and that creates a different axis on the ball, hence the slice. Now, watching him do that there, I watched that loads and loads of times. Obviously, I know that an open face is how we hit from the inside, and the more we hit from the inside, the more of an axis left we get. But listening to him talk, that's quite revealing. If you want a copy of that video, just send me a message. Alrighty, so let's talk about now. If I take my driver here and put it up close to you, you'll see it's not perfectly flat. It has a curve to it. And again, from this angle here, you can see it even more. So a golf club has two curves to its face. One is its bulge, which goes that way, and the second is its roll, which goes this way. And that's why the quality of strike is absolutely critical in controlling your spin rates. If we go over here now. So we talked about attack angle, we talked about face angle, we talked about the club path and how that creates the spin axis here. The launch direction, starting right at target for a draw spin, which is obviously what we all want. Launch angle, and then spin rate here, that ball spinning backwards 2640. Now my optimum, which I know, should be around about 22, 23, 2400 here. So I put a little bit too much spin on that ball. As a consequence of that, I've lost a yard of carry, but more importantly, I've lost 9 yards of roll. So why is that? Quite simply, if you think of it like your tennis shots, a little too much backspin on the ball's going to rise, and when it hits the ground, it's going to land softly. Now, by putting an extra, say 300 revolutions per minute on that ball, the ball's risen too much. As it's landed, TrackMan's telling me I've lost 9 yards of roll. 9 yards of roll times 14 drives, yeah, that's an awful lot of yardage over the course of one round of golf, 2 rounds of golf course of a season. So I'd have to get my spin rate down. Now what I did then, I felt it on the strike, was my strike was slightly high on the face here. Now the higher up the face I get, the more spin I create because there's more loft on this part of the club than there is down here. If that club face there was perfectly flat, then every strike would leave the face at more or less the same angle. But because it's not flat, remember it has this roll on the face here, bulge goes that way. Because it has the roll on the face, there's slightly more loft at the top of the club here, even if it's 1 degree. And of course, that tiny bit of extra loft of a high strike creates a little bit too much spin, and that's why I got too much backspin on that flight there. So those are your spin factors. Those are what's creates all the spin on the ball. Now, if I then make a strike which goes off the toe here, that toe is curved that way more, and the heel of the club is curved that way more. Remember the bulge I talked about a second ago? Now, if you take a round sphere, or take a sphere, beg your pardon, and hit it off a rounded surface, that in turn creates lots of spin action on the ball as well. And that's why a toe strike will get the ball to bend a little bit more to the left of target. It puts just that little bit more, because it's more open there, remember, it puts that little bit more axis on the ball to curve it this way. It's why a nasty necky strike over here will get the ball to curve back to centre fairway from the left to the right. Now, my rep for TrackMan is the rep for the European Tour, so he comes fresh off the tour with all his TrackMan data, and he is very open about showing it to us because TrackMan's fantastic for sharing information. And so we get to see the striking quality of the ball flights and the spin rates of the Tour pros. And if you look at the golf club here, there's the center of the club there, right there. Yeah. Now, the higher up we go, we increase spin and height. The lower down we go, we lose spin and lose height. And lots of links players or windy course players try to tee the ball very, very low down here to ensure a strike comes from that part of the club there. These strikes here are going to kill you. They lose loads of distance. And for every quarter of an inch you misstrike a ball, you lose about 7% of its distance. And so the sweet spot strike is key. And when the TrackMan rep shows us these sweet spot strikes from the European Tour, they're either absolutely bang center, as you would think, or for the hookers of the ball, they're slightly high off the toe over here, because they're trying to find a point of the club which just tilts the axis of the ball a little more to the left and gives them a little bit more height to create that lovely high draw spin that you see on the TV. Now, if you look at my ball flight simulation here, you can see it started right, got up to an apex there, 111 foot, and then it's really, this axis on the ball here, 7.3 degrees, has really kicked in now and bent the ball left of target, and that's what gave me 18 foot of total movement to the left of that spin axis. Alrighty, so what are the factors in your club that create all those motions? Well, the most important thing is the shaft. We hear this all the time. Most obvious thing we can talk about with the shaft is its flex, its bend, but it can bend several different ways. If I find one of my favorite photographs for you, of the shaft of the club at impact. Well, here's Jack Nicklaus for a start. You can see that shaft is bowing. So it's bending downwards. That's one bend. Find another one for you. And look at that, wowee. That's really bending. So that's flex. When we talk about the flex of the shaft, it can bend, and it bends several ways in the goal swing. It bends that way, on the picture I've just shown you. It bends that way. It also has what's called a kick point. Now, the kick point is where the club flips the most. If the kick point is high at the top of the shaft here, it means you've got a long lever from that point, or from that fulcrum there, and it reduces spin on the ball, it reduces height on the ball. If the kick point is way down here, that fulcrum there creates a little flick at the bottom of the swing, which creates much more spin on the ball and much more height on the ball. So when we're custom fitting people for their shafts, we're looking for shafts which suit their game. Now, I tend to put a little bit too much spin on the ball, so I'm always looking for a shaft which gets the ball a little bit lower down. And so my kick point is quite high up the shaft here to stop the club from flipping. And oftentimes when I'm coaching one of the lady members, I'll hit their club and I'll see the ball really bank up like this with so much spin on the ball. If I'm messing about with them on the range into the wind, and the wind's coming right in, I can really whip their driver to get the ball to go up, and then the wind will send the ball backwards because the spin rate is so high, 7,000-8,000 revs, it goes up, hits the wind, and then the ball starts to come backwards. So the kick point of the shaft is absolutely huge. You then also have a thing called torque, and every shaft has and needs torque. And torque is a twist this way, twisting the handle that way. Yeah. So we talked about flex, we talked about kick point, and then the final part is torque, and every shaft needs torque. That's what helps the club twist in this way. Also, if you think about it, when a golf ball gets struck, then that can really spin the head or knock the head backwards. So when we make a contact, that torque helps the club stay on target to the target and send forwards. When they do the high-speed cameras, the tour professionals club hitting a ball, it comes in, strikes the ball flies off, and the club stays more or less square. When they show high handicappers misstrike the ball, the club comes in, and then this happens. It bounces and wobbles around. So another key ingredient into controlling your spin on the ball and controlling the axis on the ball is a club head design. Now, loads of times when I go and do a custom fit for members, I'll take a variety of different clubs, and in my mind, I'll be quite sure that that person will like XYZ brand or XYZ model, and I get it completely wrong. For whatever reason, certain heads and certain designs just suit certain swings better, and I've been proven right and wrong so many times on that, and that's why I love stocking so many brands. You say, okay, you've got all these different brands to choose from. One of them is going to suit you. The customization process should be quite similar. We're looking for sort of a regular sort of shaft flex for somebody who's swinging their 80s miles an hour, a stiffer flex within the 90s. But different brands and different kick points and different models will produce different results. It's just natural. And of course, also the ball that you use. If a ball, like the Titleist Velocity ball is a fantastic ball if you want more height, because it's designed to get spin on the ball. It spins a lot more backwards and goes up. Now, if you've got a slow swing speed or you're someone who flights the ball too low, the Velocity is a fantastic ball. Our best-selling ball is the Titleist Pro V1, and not everybody should be using that ball. It's a bit too hard for most amateur golfers. You've got to really be hitting quite some compression on that ball and giving it quite a big smack. So your choice of ball is key, and what we do is we measure your spin rates inside, we measure the swing speed inside, and we say, okay, well, this is the sort of ball that you should be using. So Dr. Don McKenzie sent me a great question this week, And he said that when he hits the ball, he doesn't always see the strike. And when he addresses the ball, he's looking for what's the best part of the ball to be looking at. Well, it's a fabulous question, because the only part of the ball you should be looking at really is the part of the ball you're intending to hit. Now, obviously, we hit the ball to the target, but we don't hit all of the ball. We're actually trying to hit from the inside. Let's have me tilt that camera down a tiny bit for you. We're trying to hit the ball from this hitting position here, from the inside into the back of the back quarter of the ball, I beg your pardon. So not the back of the ball here, but the back inside quarter here. So if that was quarter, that golf ball, it's this quarter here I'm looking for. And oftentimes when you see your player set up the ball, they tilt their head a little bit like this, because they're sort of so fixated on being on the inside and looking at that portion of the ball to get that strike. So to answer your question, Dom, I would look at the inside quarter of the ball. So if it's a clock face, you're looking down on it, 12, 3, 6. I'd be looking somewhere between 3 and 6 on the arc here. You then made a point in your question where you said you don't always see the strike. Golf balls on the face of a club for around about 1/2000th of a second. 1/2000th of a second. Now, someone did the maths on this online, and a scratch golfer would need to play 28 rounds of golf for a golf ball to be on the club face for a full second. So you ain't going to see many strikes. You may see a ball fly as you're looking down. You might get the blur of the ball fly, but you won't see the strike. And so many people have said to me over these, I can't quite see the ball, keep my head down, see the strike. It's 1/2000th of a second. You aren't going to see it. Now, Nick Faldo, one of the greatest players of all time, one of the great technicians of all time, in several of his comments about swing technique, he says, really laser your eyes on the ball, watch the strike. And again, it goes back to that sort of fluidity I was talking about before. He's never seen a strike. He's seen a ball fly off a club face, but he's never seen the strike. But it focuses his mind on doing something which is brilliant. Focus on what you're trying to hit and keep your head still. Loads of tour professionals bob their head up and down a little bit, but at point of contact, they look like they're sort of lasering their eyes on the ball. Now, when they first started doing optometric tests on tour, Sebe's eyesight was beyond perfect. And what they reckoned was that on the short game, he could just see things that other players couldn't see. So when he was looking at greens and reading greens and what have you, his eye was so much better at seeing things which most of us couldn't see. Now, interestingly, in 1999, before Tiger Woods had his corrective surgery on his eyes, he is quoted as saying that he was almost near legally blind if he didn't wear glasses or contact lenses as measured for an American driving license. So his eyesight was really, really nearsighted. So when you're looking to see the ball fly, oftentimes you couldn't see it. Best player in the world and with quite ropey eyesight. So, Simon Dixon, why do manufacturers bevel the face on the driver? Does that give more trampoline effect? The reason being why we have that, if it was perfectly flat, the ball would slide off the face a lot more and we'd have less of the incline help on the ball. I talked about the, the spin axis. If that was perfectly flat, it wouldn't help us on the spin axis. That bulge going that way and the roll going that way just helps off-center strikes come back to the targets a little bit more. That's why they put those shapes on the face. And it's something, when I first turned professional, I worked for a master club maker. We made persimmon-headed woods for tour professionals. And so we would spend an awful lot of time with files and rasps and what have you, filing down these corners of a solid block of wood until the tour professional looked down at it and loved the way the look of the club face would be. I only caught the very, very tail end of that. I turned pro when I was 19 in 1992. So there's still a handful of tour professionals using wooden heads, and not many. But he would shape the clubs as well. And very typically, most tour professionals, when they look down at a club, want to see the face slightly open. Now, for years, they say, well, I like the face slightly open, it stops the ball from going left. But of course, what does Tiger say? When he wants to hit a draw, i.e. the ball curving to the left, he tilts the face even more open by 1 degree. So it's when we had the European Tour seniors European Tour members here, and I just bought my TrackMan, and I put it out on the 10th tee during the Pro-Am, and about half of them, guys in their 50s, walked up and said, "I love TrackMan. I've been using it for 2 or 3 years now. I really love the data." But another half would say, "Don't let me near that thing. I don't know anything about the data." And the reason being, they swung in a way which TrackMan said, "Well, you're not optimizing your swing." But of course, they played the game a certain way. And if you go back to what I said at the very beginning today, this data that we're talking about here today may not make you a better golfer. It just is something for, like I say, the scientists, the engineers, the nerds, the geeks like me, to get into and just understand. It's fascinating. But it doesn't make for a perfect golfer. Now, the seniors tour pros who came and played in it, when I looked at their data, I thought, wow, some of that's really, really counter to what the young guys are doing. Now, of course, the young guys are using these machines all the time, and they are obsessed by them, and they all swing the club in very, very similar fashions. There's a slight variance on their spin rates, because some like a high ball flight and some like a low ball flight, but they're all hitting the ball more or less from the same path into the ball with more or less the same club face position, hitting from the inside, because we know that optimizes the distance, and they hit the ball very slightly up the club face to hit a draw. So most of them are doing that. And one of the tour pros, when he came to the Pro-Am, tried to hit a drive which he thought would please TrackMan, and he hit an awful shot. And he said, "I bloody hate that thing," he says. "With every time I try and swing the way TrackMan wants me to swing, I hit it terribly." So that goes back to what I've talked about in the past about the real conflict sometimes between science and art. The game is a science, but the swing is certainly science-based. The game is a science-based art and skill. And so what we have to do is look at this data here and be fascinated by it, but also pick out the key data points which mean something to us at the point we're at. So Simon Dixon's very interesting. Had quite a struggle with the driver about 3 years ago. We worked very hard in here on changing his driving action, dramatically changed his driving action. We've added tons and tons of yardage, and we've completely changed how he swings the club. And that's quite common now when I come in here, just to say to people, look, let's completely change this. Let's not go for a small sticking plaster here. Let's really work on your swing and do what the tour pros do. And of course, Simon's had great results out of it. On the answer of trampoline effect, what is trampoline effect? Well, when we strike a golf ball, it doesn't just fly off the face. It molds into the face. It looks like a poached egg by the time it sort of squashes into the face and then springs off. The manufacturers are allowed a certain amount of trampoline effect in the club face. They're allowed to have the club face to give a little bit to add a bit more spring there. Now, if you remember about 12, 13 years ago, 14 years ago, loads of drivers became illegal because they had too much spring in the face. They were sort of tweaking physics a little bit to put lots of spring in the face and send the ball even further. But there is a limit to how much trampoline effect any face can give. Now, that doesn't change anything, that the optimum place to strike a golf ball is off the sweet spot or slightly higher the sweet spot toward the toe. If you get it in that sort of postcode around there, you're going to optimize the ball's flight. Alrighty, so I love talking about this sort of stuff, but I don't think it's going to make any of us the Open champion when we finally get an Open championship played. But it's just interesting to know. This is the sort of detail which I love getting into on things. It's great to have a variety of handicaps and abilities coming to join the technical sessions. But like I say, use it judiciously. It's interesting stuff, but it's not going to completely revolutionize your game. The swing hasn't really changed. We're trying to swish the club at speed. Listen to that speed. And we're trying to smack the golf ball squarely. The squarest strike comes from the inside with a club face which smacks just from the inside and then comes over. So, are there any more questions on anything I've talked about today, or anything which you'd like to talk about, or any questions I've got about the swing in general? I'll give you a minute to type those in. Just for vanity, I'm going to try and hit a better drive than I just hit there while you're typing, if you're going to type something. So my last club SP was 101, and that gave me 254 carry. I'm going to try and get this one a bit more of a belt now. Oh. In fact, that would be a great one to have shown you with some tape on the face. So I swung the full 2 miles an hour faster. I hit the ball 16 yards less distance. Yeah, horrible slice out to the right. So I'm going to put some tape on the face now, and we're going to see if I can get a centered strike. So you can see that, yes, I increased my club head. Oops. Yes, I increased my club head speed, but I lost my distance. So a big lesson for us all there. Don't be a smarty pants. Don't be aggressive with the game. The golfing gods are always watching. Even worse. It's a horrid strike. Miles off. Okay, last one, and then I'll go. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so swung 3 miles an hour faster. Every mile an hour at my level should yield 2.5 yards of distance. My ball speed wasn't quite that much faster, 1 mile an hour faster. Carried to 5.6, but my height was much lower. So look at that. My total distance was 281. So 25 yards of roll on that ball. Attack angle, 6.3 on the inside, but I closed the face too much there, and that's what gave me 111 foot of hook. Again, I don't mind that. One of my negotiables in my game is that I don't mind the occasional hook. My spin axis, as a result of that and that, gave me a huge 12.7 degree spin axis there. Alrighty, folks. Well, I wish you all a very happy Easter. Can't wait to see you all again here. It is lonely when you're in the job that I'm in, where you're dealing with people all the time. Having a club bereft of people is just a nightmare. So I wish you all a very happy Easter. Hope you all stay healthy and safe. Stay in touch with those people who need a bit of contact. And any questions, give me a shout. Simon, I'll send the Tiger video on to you. It's fascinating. In fact, what I think I'll do is when I do my description of the video today, I'll put the link for the Tiger video into this description. I'm going to do it right now. So I'll put it into the link for the Tiger video, for the description of the video. I wish you all well. I'm doing sessions next week. You should have the schedule sent through to you on your membership email. And I look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you very much for your time. God bless you. Cheerio.